Hello, bonjour, namaste, ni hao, and ohio, everybody. What is going on? It is Gale here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi video. And today we are here to do something a little bit different. Now, I wanted to put up this screen and have nothing on your screen, I should say, more importantly, because I wanted to assure you guys that whatever we're going to be doing in this video is not spoilers. It is all stuff from before the start of the war games. So just to assure you guys, I have not put up anything on screen just so that you are aware that this video will not be spoilers, which is kind of weird to say, but I know a lot of people will probably see what's on screen and immediately click off worrying that it is spoilers. So just to assure you guys, this video will not contain any spoilers for what's to come in the anime. What is in this video is, of course, Belle's stats sheet from before the start of the war game. So if I were to put up the image right now, of course, you guys can see why I'm saying that this might contain spoilers for what's to come. It is just a screenshot from the light novel. At the end of the light novel, his stats sheet, of course, right, containing information about what he does and everything. The background image is from a previous scene. Don't worry, it's from season 4, so don't you worry about that. I'm confirming that and assuring you guys on that fact, so don't you worry. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's just Belle doing Argo Vesta, so it doesn't really matter too much at the end of the day. But anyways, this is something I've been wanting to do for quite some time now. I've wanted to do some analysis work. I wanted to do something a little bit different compared to what I usually do. You know, if you look at all my videos, they're usually ending up being sort of reviews, reactions, game videos, stuff about the anime, light novels. It's never really about the characters. I've never really done a deep dive on any of the characters, and I wanted to do that today because, of course, one of the things I noticed when it comes to the anime, right, is it doesn't do a really good job in showing the stats and abilities of the characters. It makes a mention of, you know, oh, the addition of a new skill. Like, of course, in the case of volume 18 and the start of war games, we found out that when Belle leveled up to level 5, he gained a brand new skill in Vanadis Tever. Now, of course, they gave a very brief description of what it does and how it works, of course, right? But nothing beyond that, nothing on what his stats are or what his stats were at the final stage when he was level 4 or anything of that sort. So I want to make that video today. I want to talk about Belle. I want to talk about how strong he is potentially in comparison to other characters, and just generally give you guys an idea on what he looks like right now when he's in the war games, because this is, of course, his latest updated stats just as he's heading into war games against the Freya Familia. Of course, if you guys go on to enjoy this video, remember to leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel for more content, and let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with Belle's strength? Where would you guys rate him based on what you see right now? And of course, keep in mind that there should be no spoilers in the comment section. I know some people will be, you know, looking at this and being like, oh, I guess I can spoil about volume 19, 20, and so on and so forth. No, you cannot do that, so don't do that, all right? Don't do that, okay? But yeah, let's start off with the skill sheet that we have here and generally give you guys an idea on what Belle is like at this moment in time. So let's take a look at the top left and we'll go down, we'll go clockwise, kind of basically going from top left, top right, and then we'll come to the bottom left. Belle Crenel belongs to the Hestia Familia, of course, finally updated back to being in the Hestia Familia and everything. Race human, job adventure. The dungeon range is, of course, the 37th floor, which is, of course, where he got to in season 4 and in volumes 12 to 14. Of course, this is going to be something that I think a lot of people will pick up on and be quite concerned with Belle, because, of course, you know, we know that the dungeon can go up to the 71st floor. Of course, in the anime, we've seen, of course, the Loki Familia and stuff get up to the 59th floor. But, of course, when it comes to Astrea Record, which is, of course, in Danmachi and everything, it's very accessible and stuff, of course, that story. We do know that the Zeus and Hera familiars were able to go down to the 71st floor, and that was even confirmed in episode 10, of course, when we saw Royman bribing the Loki familia and Finn in particular with the idea of giving him information and giving them information regarding the 60th floor and below, because the Zeus and Hera familiars were able to get down there. So that is something to keep in mind, and I know a lot of people will be quite concerned about Belle's inexperience to have also gone down to these lower floors, which I agree with. I think this is where I will say, you know, even though we're approaching the final arc in Danmachi right now, right? I still believe that Bell still needed some more time in the dungeon. To be honest, a lot more time in the dungeon, reaching the floors that, the Zeus and Hera Familia have, and so on and so forth, for me to be quite assured on the fact that he's able to take on that final fight that we're, also looking forward to, come the end of the story, right? But that's something to keep in mind, is Bell's inexperience in the dungeon is something that's really, really noticeable, to be quite honest. And that's going to be factoring in our analysis of Bell come towards the end of this video when we talk about him and his abilities, of course, right? His weapons are Hestia Knife and Hakugen. I really hope he learns to, or gets, I should say, a more permanent weapon that is a little bit more bigger. Because if you look at him in previous seasons, right? Season 3, Season 4, Season 1 even, going all the way back then, one of the things you may have noticed with Bell is he tends to also start using a great sword, all of a sudden, either a Tarl supplies him with one or the Minotaur supplies him with one, maybe because he cut the hand off of a Minotaur and stuff, but, he tends to start using bigger weapons, and Hestia Knife kind of gets relegated to being a side weapon, which, considering how much they gassed up Hestia Knife at the very beginning, feels kind of bad in a sense, right? I do think that nonetheless, we do need a new weapon. And one of the things I was really hoping for was the Hestia Knife. It should have probably been a weapon that could evolve not only strength-wise, but also potentially weapon style-wise. Maybe it could have become a Hestia sword inevitably, or a Hestia, great sword. It could have been transformable, in the sense, that would have made his weapon even more special compared to everybody else's weapon, right? And he doesn't have much money on him. He has only a grand total of 20 Valus. So the ban is poor. I mean, going into war games, I don't see a reason why you need to have that much Valus on you anyways, to be honest, right? Now, before we get into the level 5 stats, I'll just give you guys a quick breakdown of what his stats were at level 4 when he was just about to basically get his level up, basically. So this is what is going to be quite interesting, because this is, I think, what makes him even stronger than a base level 5. I think Bell's stats are probably more like a higher level 5s, because the thing is, you have to understand how stats work in the first place when you level up, right? A lot of the stats you have, they just don't disappear. They get transitioned over into the next level. So you actually start off with stats from your previous levels, basically, when you go to the next level. So if you have really high stats at the end of your level, you will be jumping into level 5 at at a very good base level. It may seem on paper that it's not a lot, but in reality, it's quite a bit. And not to mention as well, it's one of the reasons why we see a lot of people and a lot of adventurers waiting until their stats are at a good enough amount to go for that feat that will allow them to level up. And it's also one of the reasons why Hestia was also like, there's no harm in, stopping him from leveling up at the very beginning of the season when he was just about to level up and everything, right? Even Hestia said that he's ready to level up after the events of season 4, but I want to wait before he does it because of course, people noticing, for one, and number two, to give him a little bit more stats as well when it comes to his strength, endurance, dexterity, agility, and magic, of course, right? So coming off of level 4, all of his stats were triple S. Yep, you heard that right. Every single one of his stats were triple S. I don't remember him even having anything of this sort in his previous levels. I think level 1, it was all double S. Level 2 was double S and some triple S's. Level 3 only had one triple S, if I recall correctly, in agility. But when he was going from level 4 to level 5, every single stat was triple S. Triple S 1379 in strength, triple S 1501 in endurance, triple S 1383 in dexterity, triple S 1442 in agility, and triple S 1251 in magic. And the reason for this, and you might be wondering how did he have so much stats, is because of course, his training with the Freya Familia. A lot of people may assume and presume that you only get stats from fighting monsters, but that's not really the case. In every facet of life that you do, whatever you do, anything that's strenuous, anything that challenges you, anything that tests your stats and your abilities and your overall everything that affects the stats chart, strength, magic, agility, all of that sort of stuff, it will affect your stats overall. It's one of the reasons why Hestia was also so willingly allowing Belle to go train with Eyes in previous seasons, and why she was hoping that she could get Belle to train with Eyes for the, lead up into the War Games, because of course with Liara's freeze, Eyes will help Belle get even better stats as well, just because of course that whole facet of him being in love with Eyes, of course, right? That is something that's very imperative here. And so going into level 5, he had some amazing stats which will effectively allow him to be I would say more leaning towards a high level 5, to be quite honest, mid to high level 5. The only thing really stopping him from utilizing all of his stats is just his inexperience, and of course that whole thing of he's just become level 5, and so he's still getting ready for, of course, the big one. We saw this in his preparation with Tiona and Tione, who both of them are level 6s. He was good against them, of course, right? He was able to keep up with them to an extent, but he was still a little bit off, purely because of that whole factor of lack of training as a level 5, and also just a lack of experience of fighting. At the end of the day, he's only had like 8 months of training. You have to remember that this guy has had barely any time in the dungeon, on the front lines, whereas Tione, multiple years of experience, Eyes, multiple years of experience. And so there is a big difference there, of course, between Belle and everybody else in that regards as well. So the stats on paper, while they look amazing, of course, right, and of course thanks to his previous stats they look even better, there is still that whole factor of he still needs a little bit more time. Now if we take a look at his stats at level 5, strength G 222, defense F 340, dexterity G 24, agility F 311, and magic is I 98. So there's still a long way to go for Belle, of course, right, as an adventurer, as a level 5 adventurer more so. But considering this is his start, and of course, obviously his stats from previous levels helping out majorly, he's at a good spot right now, of course, strength wise. And that is where I will say is the problem. I think a problem for Belle pretty much is his growth has been so much, and he's got such high stats that while he is strong, it's about how he uses that strength. And that is where the analysis will come into place. How is he able to use that strength? Is he able to actually take advantage of that strength compared to, higher level characters? You might see him be able to go toe to toe very easily with the likes of potentially like Shakti and so on and so forth, fellow level 5s, right? But the problem is when he goes up against a level 6, which should be fairly close nonetheless because of his stats and everything, you might still see him struggle a little bit because of that. And that's something that will come into play. Of course, his development skills and his development abilities, more so I should say, is very interesting, because of course you have the likes of luck, which is F, immunity, which is G, escape, which is G, and rapid attacks, which is I. Now, one thing to note, which you might want to keep an eye out on, is his escape ability went from I to G, so that got a bit of a boost, of course, going from level 4 to level 5. Escape basically allows him to increase his speed when he's running away, of course. So he got it at level 4, and then now he's gotten a bit of a boost at level 5, and this is something that he got because, of course, he got chased on by a lot of enemies, of course, right? So especially in in the events of Xenos Arc and everything. So yeah, of course, luck, of course, helps him out in finding resources in the dungeon and getting drops more frequently, and so he's a bit well off there. Abnormal resistance, of course, allows him to get basically effect res against stuff like poison and so on and so forth. And since it's rank G, not even the strongest poisons can affect him, basically. Now, what you might want to look at is, of course, rapid attacks or chain attacks. Effectively, the point and the thought process behind this development ability is that the more attacks he does consecutively, the more power it gives those attacks. So it just gets stronger and stronger and stronger as he keeps attacking. So you have to keep attacking in order to take advantage of rapid attacks, of course, right? Now, his magic is Firebolt, Swift Strike magic. We know, of course, what Swift's Firebolt is like. And we, of course, know his abilities with, of course, Firebolt as well. And how he can manipulate it with, of course, his Argonaut skill, of course, right? We'll talk about that in a moment. So Liaris Freeze is rapid growth, continued desire results in continued growth, stronger desire results in stronger growth. So again, Liaris Freeze, as we mentioned many times in previous videos and live streams and so on and so forth, it all has to do with his link to eyes. As long as that link to eyes is still there and he doesn't betray it himself, he doesn't betray it, he will be able to take advantage of the Liaris Freeze. Now, on top of that as well, we know because of the Ryu What If as well, that the Liaris Freeze skill is now also slightly affected by the Xenoses and his desire to also take on Astreus as well. So these factors are also coming into play into Liaris, but the main predominant factor and the biggest factor of them all is, of course, his love and feelings for eyes. That is the most important thing that will be affecting Liaris Freeze, and it's again, like I said, the reason why he gets a lot of stats from when he trains with eyes, of course, because that desire to be on the same level as eyes, or at least be alongside eyes, be able to protect eyes effectively. So yeah, that is Liaris Freeze. Argonaut charges automatically with active action. Now we know his Argonaut ability, which allows him to basically spend his stamina and mind to be able to perform an extremely powerful attack. And of course, the more he is able to attack and the more he's able to charge up more, so he is able to effectively get stronger and stronger and stronger. Of course, as the levels have progressed, he's able to charge up more and more and more. So at level 3, it was 3 minutes. At level 4, he was able to extend it to 4 minutes. And now at level 5, it should be 5 minutes, basically. So, yeah, it is very, very important, of course. He's also able to use Limit Off as well to go alongside with Argonaut, allowing him to basically extremely increase the power of his strength. And then, of course, with Argonaut, he's able to also use dual charge, which allows him to use Argo Vesta as well. So that is something to keep in mind as well. It is going to be very interesting to see how this develops, because his Argonaut ability is probably the most versatile in his skill set, in my opinion, because it'll just work super well with his Firebolt and his general abilities as well. Now we move on to two of his skills, which I'm not the biggest fan of. And this is where my analysis on him is going to be a little bit more trickier to do, because it gets very annoying with including these skills. Oxslayer. All abilities are drastically enhanced when fighting Minotaurs. It's as simple as it suggests. This skill is only really useful against the bull type, more Minotaur-like monsters. So it's really only meant for his fight against Astreus when it happens down the line. Vanadis Tever is a skill that obviously was implemented as a sort of showing of like him, sort of like rejecting Freya for all this time and then leveling up after that. Vanadis Tever basically raises all of Bel's stats by a huge amount and also regenerates his stamina and mind when charm is being used on him. This, in my opinion, is probably one of the shittiest skills that Omori could have given Bel, in my personal opinion. Like, don't get me wrong, on paper, okay, yeah, if he gets charmed, awesome. Like, he'll get a big stats boost and everything, and it's a pretty insane stats boost as well that he could get as well, based on what it says, extreme boost. But like, who's gonna charm him on the battlefield? Is there gonna be anybody to charm him actively on the battlefield? I guess, if let's say they win the war games, which, let's be real, if it's MC protagonist, big hype thing and all, Bel will probably win the war games. Let's say they get the Freya Familia as a subservient familia to the Hestia Familia, right? I guess you could use Horn as a way to charm him consecutively, so that he basically gets an extreme boost actively, because Horn's only job will be to continuously charm him. I guess that could work, but it's one of those that, in the grand scheme of things, like, really, is that gonna work? I don't know. Now, of course, in the bottom left, before we come back and do a full analysis and breakdown, the girl's pendant, of course, is the pendant that they're referring to, the amulet that, of course, we had with Bell and Seer when they were talking about Full End of Water and Light, and it is of course talking about the story of Full End of Water and Light, basically the accessory of a knight who continues to watch over a blue gray-haired girl. Don't cry Bedland, don't live in grief Erland. I assume this means Full End more, so I think there was just a bit of a mistranslation there. What I gained after love made me me. This pain and the scar saved me and set me free. You too, I experienced an unforgettable love. The memories sleep in the coffin, bubbling up from below the water surface, still wearing a smile. Of course, we'll learn more about this story in the game Full End of Water and Light, which is releasing in February, of course, right? I'm definitely going to be playing that on stream and in as videos as well, so keep an eye out for that. But yeah, Bell is very strong. Bell is very strong going into volume 18 and of course of the events of War Games, but there are still some concerns. While I do think Bell can take on the likes of a fellow level 5 that is likes of Shakti and so on and so forth, and maybe individually he'll be able to take on the Gulliver brothers, there is still a big discrepancy between him and of course a lot of the level 6s, and that includes Eyes as well. He is nowhere near their abilities, and we saw this even when he was taking on Otarl. Of course, one thing to note about Otarl is that he's very close to level 8 as well, just because of how long he's been a level 7. He's been a level 7 for nearly 7-8 years now, and so he's been at the higher end of level 7 for I would assume at least a few months, if not a year plus by now, and there is a difference there. But nonetheless, you would think that with Bell's stats and everything, his just lift, the continuous push of his stats from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 to level 4 level 5 now, going from double S, triple S and so on and so forth, you would think that his stats are like basically at this point in time as a level 5, they would be pretty much that of a high level 5 or a low level 6. But, and this is where the big but comes into play, his skills outside of Argonaut are all reliant on other factors that don't really help him in fights. Obviously Oxslayer is great and all, don't get me wrong, but what is the Oxslayer gonna do against the big baddie that's coming at the end of the series in the One-Eyed Black Dragon, right? It doesn't make any sense. It's great for his fight against the Strayas, but it's not good against like Otarl, for example. It's not great against like the One-Eyed Black Dragon. It's not great against Eyes either. And so there is that factor. And then Vanadis Tever as well. This is where it becomes a problem as well. Like if you factor in everything, like imagine Oxslayer was active all the time, Vanadis Tever active all the time, he would be basically that of a level 6 effectively. But he is not, and that's the problem. We have all these other characters that are insane. You look at Sword of Rotoria, you'd learn how strong some of the Loki Familia members are, especially with their skills and everything. You look at Bet, you look at Eyes with Ariel and stuff. They are on another level, and they get those boosts very easily, and they can get a big boost and to a higher level because of that, basically. And that is the problem with Bell. Bell is strong. He is probably one of the strongest adventurers in Orario, but he's still far away from the higher level members that are currently in the Loki Familia and Freya Familia. I could make an argument that Bell is probably the strongest character in Orario that isn't in the Freya and Loki Familia. That is probably an easy thing I can say. I'd like to think as well that everybody else would agree with me on that one. I think there's only a few that could get close to him and match him, but I think with his stats, Argonaut and everything going on, he is probably up there as probably the strongest character in Orario outside of the top dogs from the Loki and Freya Familias. I'm pretty sure on that fact, and I'm like 100% confident in saying that. He is strong, he is very good, but this is something that we need to see more of from him. And the more important thing we need to see from him, and this is the weaknesses that he has, to be honest. His strengths are of course the likes of Argonaut and of course his stats and everything and his development abilities, but his weaknesses in my opinion are his inexperience in just fighting in general, be it humans or monsters. That needs to change. And number 2, it's probably his skills. His skill set is probably the weakest amongst the top dogs. Honestly, I really do genuinely believe that it is probably one of the weakest amongst the top dogs. That is where he needs to improve on. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below about Bell now that you've seen this. Do you guys agree with my analysis or disagree with it? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, all that sort of good stuff. And I'll catch you guys next time. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.